Sometimes life throws you a moment so unexpected it just stops everything, like the whole village holding its breath, frozen in disbelief. That's exactly what happened when a blind girl walked right up to the village's most feared dog, a German shepherd named Bruno, and hugged him. Yeah, that happened. Bruno wasn't just any dog. For years, he'd been a nightmare lurking at the edge of the village, chained behind rusted iron bars, snarling at anyone who dared come close. He'd attacked twice before without warning, so everyone just avoided that dark corner like it was cursed. They said he was dangerous, possessed even, and they weren't kidding. Kids were warned to stay away, and adults crossed the street to dodge his fierce glare. But no one really knew what had broken this dog, only that he belonged to a hunter who vanished mysteriously years ago. Then, one quiet afternoon, a small truck rolled into town, and a young family moved into an old cottage just a stone's throw from Bruno's cage. The couple had a little girl, Aisha, 10 years old, blind since birth. Her eyes never opened to the world, but somehow she saw more than anyone else. She recognized people by their footsteps, their voices. While other kids kept their distance from the unknown, Aisha leaned toward it with a calm curiosity that unsettled the villagers. A few mornings after settling in, Aisha sat on the front steps, listening to birds and rustling leaves when she heard that guttural bark from Bruno's kennel. Tilting her head, she asked her mother, "What's that sound?" Her mom warned her softly, "That's Bruno. No one goes near him. He's not safe." But Aisha just smiled faintly and said, "He doesn't sound angry. He sounds sad." That puzzled everyone, especially when Aisha started asking around about Bruno. The villagers waved her off, telling her to stay away. "That dog's crazy," an old man grunted. But Aisha was thoughtful, pressing a hand to her chest, saying, "I don't know why, but I feel like he's not what they think." Let me back up a sec, because this next part, it's where the whole village's story changed forever. At dawn, when the village was still half asleep, Aisha quietly slipped out, barefoot, her fingers tracing the wooden fence as she walked toward Bruno's bark, that familiar sound she now recognized. A farmer saw her and yelled, "Girl, don't go near him." Panic rippled through the crowd as more people gathered, voices rising with fear. "She's blind. Someone stop her," a woman cried, but no one moved. Aisha stopped just a few feet from the kennel, completely still. Bruno growled, muscles tense, eyes locked on her like a coiled spring. But Aisha didn't flinch. She reached out slowly and said, calm as a breeze, "I'm not here to hurt you." The whole village went silent, holding their breath, because no one had ever dared speak to Bruno that way. Then the impossible happened. Bruno's snarls faded. He stopped barking. He just stared at her, confused. Maybe. Aisha took a slow step forward, knelt, and opened her arms wide. "You're not a bad dog," she whispered, "but just lonely, aren't you?" And right there, in front of everyone, Bruno lowered his head, inching closer until his snout pressed softly against her chest. The crowd gasped. The beast they feared let a blind girl touch his heart. Bruno sighed deeply, like a weight had been lifted, his tail twitching, then slowly wagging. The villagers stood frozen, unsure if they were dreaming. The dog that once lunged at any visitor now lay beside Aisha like a loyal friend. She stroked his fur gently and said, "You're warm, and your heart's beating fast just like mine." Bruno licked her hand, a low, almost apologetic whine escaping his throat, a language only she seemed to understand. Over the next few minutes, Bruno followed her as she stood, slow and submissive, never baring teeth. People whispered in disbelief, the monster tamed by a girl who couldn't even see him. By sunset, the whole village buzzed, retelling the story as if it were a fairy tale. She just walked up and hugged him, and he melted, one man said, shaking his head. Some called it a miracle, others a gift, but no one denied what they'd seen. Aisha returned the next morning, guided by Bruno's excited whimpers. This time, no one stopped her. She sat beside him like old friends, Bruno resting his heavy head on her lap, eyes closing in peace. Kids peeked from behind trees, awestruck. Mothers softened, no longer afraid to let their children near the kennel. And day by day, the beast changed, but it wasn't just Bruno. The village changed too. Then came the twist of stormy night that turned everything upside down. Dark clouds rolled in as panic struck when a wild boar charged through the fields, snorting wildly, causing people to scream and scatter. Lost in the sounds of the rain, Aisha wandered toward the chaos, humming softly, unaware of the danger. A villager shouted desperately, "Aisha, get back!" But it was too late. The boar spotted her, ready to charge, and then with a crash that shattered the stormy silence, Bruno broke free. His chain snapped. With a roar that shook the night, he hurled himself between the boar and Aisha. What followed was a whirlwind of snarls and fury as Bruno fought fiercely, protecting her with every ounce of strength. The villagers watched in horror and awe. Bruno wasn't a monster, he was her guardian. Mud and blood coated his fur, but he never backed down. Finally, with one powerful lunge, he sent the boar crashing into a fence post, chasing it back into the forest. The villagers rushed to the scene, breathless. Aisha stood frozen, unharmed, trembling as she softly called Bruno's name. The giant dog limped to her side, panting, battered but alive. He nudged her hand with his nose, then collapsed gently beside her. Tears welled in eyes that once feared him. The same dog they had dreaded had just risked everything to save a blind child. From that moment on, everything changed. No more chains. No more cages. Bruno became a village hero. Kids approached him with treats and pats. Adults nodded with respect. But through it all, Bruno stayed closest to the one who'd seen him for what he really was, Aisha. A few days later, a traveling vet came to examine Bruno's wounds. As he gently checked the dog's body, his expression darkened. Beneath the fur were old scars, thin, crisscrossing lines far too uniform for fight wounds. "These aren't from fights," the vet muttered. "These are from beatings." The villagers fell silent. Bruno hadn't been born dangerous, he'd been broken by cruelty. His pain mistaken for aggression, his heart shut off by the world. But Aisha, blind to sight, but seeing with her soul, had recognized what no one else could: a heart still capable of love. Understanding dawned like the morning sun. Bruno wasn't a threat, he was a survivor, finally set free by the touch of a child who saw beyond fear. So what do you think? Was Bruno truly dangerous, or was he just a victim of a broken world? And what about us? How often do we judge before we really see? I want to hear your thoughts. Share below if you believe in second chances, or if you think some scars run too deep. Because this story isn't just about a dog and a girl, it's about how we choose to face the fears we don't understand.